One.
Great. See, people are still joining. Welcome everyone to Clinical Research Connections on this snowy November, well, I guess technically afternoon, noon at this point. I hope that all of you who commuted in had a nice drive this morning and didn't face too harrying of a drive on those roads. So I'll give it just another minute or so for folks to join, and then we'll get started with some introductions of the topics for the day and a poll. Right, I'm seeing arrivals start to slow a bit. So first I want to start out with a poll for today. We'd like to ask you about your offices and your team's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that integration with participant recruitment efforts. So I'll go ahead and launch this poll. The first question is going to be, has your team done anything different in the last year in terms of recruitment for participants around diversity, equity, and inclusion? And if the answer to that is yes, please open the Zoom chat and put your information in there, because we would love to reach out to you and talk to you a little bit about what your team is doing surrounding that. And then secondly, would you be interested in attending a workshop focused on how to go about including DEI engagement in your team's recruitment efforts for participants? So I'll give everybody a couple of moments to answer that. I'm seeing some yeses. Just as a reminder, if you are answering yes to that first question, please put your information in the chat, and we would love to just ask you a little bit about what your team has been doing.
We're planning on putting a workshop together in early 2023, January, February time, to really bring the groups that are working together on it, to learn from each other and to kind of think about what central resources might help. So just want to make sure that we're capturing everybody who has been kind of thinking and working in this space, so that we can make sure we get a broad array of experience in those working groups. So.
And also, if your team is just entering this space, that's okay too. Don't think that you have to be an expert to share your information with us. We're interested in hearing from you. So I'll go ahead and end that poll there. We had some no's, but a lot of yeses as well. We had 30% yeses on that first question. And then additionally, we had a significant amount of interest, 68% in attending a DEI engagement workshop. So thank you for those of you who answered, and thank you for those of you who are putting your information in the chat. And now I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers for the day. We are going to be hearing from Haley Steinhardt and Tricia Giswaldo from the Workforce Development Program. So Haley and Tricia, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Erin. We're really appreciate being invited to speak with you all in the in this forum today. Let me just share here. All right. Does that work for everyone? You can see my slides.
Oh.
Oh.
Tricia, you might want to put in presenter mode.
There?
Yep, there you go.
All right.
Thank you.
So my name is Trisha Gesualdo. I'm a senior research instructor in the Department of Pediatrics at the Barbara Davis Center. I'm partnering with Haley Steinert, a program manager in the Department of Neurology, in a clinical research professional workforce development initiative with the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research. The purpose of this initiative is to develop a 5-year strategic plan to improve the support, training, and career development opportunities for clinical research professionals here at the CU Anschutz campus. We're here today to share with you the goals of our initiative and to seek input and interest from you all. We do have a short presentation for you, but we really want this time to be spent on what's important to you. And so we hope that you'll share by coming off mute or providing input via the chat. And we'll also share our contact information with you for us to further connect in the near future. So the goals of this initiative are first to identify professionals on campus who want to collaborate with us in developing this plan. We hope to connect with research staff from entry level all the way to project directors to better understand everyone's needs, challenges, and successes. This input will help in representing the research community as we advocate for specific initiatives and make recommendations for this plan. We're in the beginning stages of learning how to best identify research professionals who may be interested in collaborating with us. And so we want to connect with as many of you as possible. We've learned there are distribution lists through Encore, InfoEd, and the Office of Research, just to name a few, that can help us with connecting with research professionals. And we're interested in any others that you think may be useful. We're currently working on a SharePoint team site to better enhance communication and collaboration with you all. So far, we've presented to the Clinical Research PI Advisory Group last month, and we've also connected with members of the student staff council here on campus. We're working with the Evaluation Center to develop a survey that's going to help us to learn more about staff retention, career development satisfaction, and the utilization of professional development resources on and outside of the university. We're hoping that these methods will help us to inform upcoming learning tours and focus groups that we will be, we're scheduling to conduct in early 2023. In wanting to learn more of the needs of the research professionals, we've considered the following questions. We'd ask that you please take a moment to review our list to date, and we're very eager to hear from you all on what else we should be asking and what we may be missing. So thank you for your time. And I'd like to go ahead, I can come back to this particular slide with the questions we have so far. But I'd like to ask if we can hear from you all on what else we may need to be thinking about.
So Trisha, could you tell me a little bit about the ideas that have surfaced so far around communicating professional development opportunities?
Well, that's I think a really great question. Is we are really in very, very early stages of trying to learn more about this. We met with the School of Medicine and HR today. Wumi's last name I don't actually know. And so there are quite a few different things that I think that are being considered in HR. And so, but this is really just one of the questions that we want to learn more about. Haley, do you have anything to add?
I guess just, out of curiosity, how do you all like to be communicated with? Are you finding certain methods work better? We're just kind of curious, trying to figure out how people like to have the information communicated to them.
Stephen, it looks like you have a question. Go ahead.
I don't have a direct response to Haley's question, but I did have a question about the skill gaps. Are you thinking about skill gaps that people have currently, or are you thinking about what might be coming down the road in the future? I think about the changes caused by precision medicine, pragmatic research, different ways of doing things that require different skill sets, how the university can be planning ahead for those so we have enough staff with skills. It's always tight. It would be nice to minimize the pain.
Yeah, I think both, right? I think we need to make sure we fill the existing gaps that we identify, but also be forward thinking so that we have a workforce that can adapt to new initiatives and new ways of doing things.
Do you have ideas, Stephen, on how we might be able to do that?
It's easier to ask the question than to provide answers, but I think talking to colleagues at other schools, like I came up from UT where there was a lot of community-based research, which requires people to be out in the field, developing relationships with the community. It's a very antagonistic relationship there. Those are not easy skills to find, to develop that kind of trust. I don't know if that's needed here, but if we're talking to other people around the different schools about what they're doing differently, that might help us try and figure out what we would want to do. I also know there's sort of a strategic vision of where research is going and what emphases are there, but I can't say that I could address those off the top of my head. I'd have to go look it up.
So Haley and Trish, I know there's I don't know how the conversation went with the School of Medicine this morning, but I know there's been conversations about space and where research professionals should live. Would it be better for them to all live together? Do they need to be close to their teams? I think the School of Medicine is looking at that piece. And then if they decide to keep research teams together, then another question would be, would there be interest in having communal space where people could gather and learn from each other?
Other areas that we've heard about have to do with onboarding. Curious if anyone feels like onboarding addresses some of the workforce development and more structured trainings, or what people would like to see with onboarding that might be missing, since it has been something that others have brought up.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point. And as we know, in clinical research, you can work in clinical research for years and still have some gaps. So I think a robust onboarding and ongoing training opportunities for research support staff would be very well received. The question, a note in the chat. Kathy says, Haley and Tricia, this is exciting and important and timely from Ortho's perspective as we build out our clinical research infrastructure. Research staff development is a top priority. I'd love to collaborate with you both and offer my help and support. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
Yes, thank you. We'll probably reach out to you and try to set something up to meet with you. Other areas that we've heard are also more in the intermediate and senior categories of research staff. This came about from the PI group, just mentioning that a lot of the senior staff wear a lot of different hats. So we're trying to think about, does workforce development look different for the different levels within research staff? So from maybe onboarding for those entry level people or people just coming into the university versus someone who's more intermediate and more senior. So curious if there are ideas around that, or if you find yourself maybe in more of a senior level, or you've been with the university a long time, if you see different needs for that type of workforce.
Nicole notes in the chat, I think there should be standard required university provided training for new research coordinators and new PIs. I know our department neurology would be happy to help develop such training. Thank you, Nicole. I'll add to that, that I know that there was that used to be somewhat outsourced. I think we had ACRP come on campus and do a week-long coordinator boot camp workshop that was it was a fee, but they did it on campus rather than having to send folks to a conference. I'm not sure if it's still in existence, but I know ACRP did also do some a PI training that was, I think it was 2 days long, but that was offered free at the time. But I think those were facilitated by the Clinical Research Support Center at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some more great feedback from the chat. Robin says, when I started in 2016, I didn't get any onboarding experience besides talk about the benefits, et cetera. And then when I transferred to my new team in 2018, because I was a transfer, I didn't get any then either. So I think onboarding needs to be a focus. Erin says there are some great articles about regarding the difference between onboarding and orientation and the importance of onboarding in relation to staff retention. I feel that standardization at the university level for all research professionals would be beneficial. Happy to collaborate more. Thank you, Erin. And Stacy says the education team in Oakrest, the Cancer Center, would love to partner on this initiative. We also receive a lot of feedback regarding onboarding and ongoing staff development. Agree with all of the comments so far and think we could do a lot to ease the onboarding burden on clinical research teams.
This sounds like a great working group right here at our fingertips. This is so exciting.
Have there been particular trainings that anyone's done? Erin mentioning the ACRP or other ones that have been on campus that you found valuable that would be good to know about?
Hi, Haley. I did a boot camp for coordinators. It was done by Kelly Willenberg. It was in person years and years ago. It's probably similar to the ACRP boot camp, but potentially lower cost. I'm not sure, but I found it really helpful. And I'm really new to the university, but at the time, we had a representative from each department attend that and then come back and sort of push out what we learned to the rest of our internal departments, and that worked really well.
Awesome. What did you say the name was?
Kelly Willenberg. I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know who commented on sort of more senior positions and needing sort of workforce development in that space as well. And I would very much agree with that. We've been trying to figure out how to, kind of collate different resources that are out there already for folks that are looking, that are interested in moving into more management or leadership. So I think that's a big component that I know it's not research specific, but I think that there's a lot that can be done in that space as well. And I would say that our education development team under Debbie Lammers is phenomenal, and they have a lot of really good things out there. I've taken part in several of her classes, and I'm just really impressed with the work that they've done. So I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel all the time either, right? Sometimes it's just corralling the resources that are out there and sort of like putting the roadmap together for people.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
This is the second time today we've heard about the expertise and all the talent of Debbie Lammers. So she's definitely on our list in terms of someone we want to connect with.
I would second Megan, who said she attended a training through Kelly Willenberg. I did as well years ago, and it was, to Heike's comment in the chat too, it was more around billing and compliance. She really is kind of the national expert in that space. And I think if we would have an opportunity to tap into any of her billing and compliance training, that they're top notch. I mean, and if anybody can make sort of billing and compliance engaging, it's Kelly. I remember going to a 2-day session, and I was like, okay, I was all excited, and I was like, but we're talking about research billing. That's kind of crazy. So if you can tap into that kind of resource, that's huge.
Thanks so much, Stacy. And thank you, Heike, for that note as well. Let's see, we've more comments in the chat. Tam says, I know something happened with the University of California, and we wonder if any resource we can find to support our university and our faculty and staff while we are facing inflation and other factors. And Megan agreeing with Heike. We have many fans of Kelly on here. It sounds like she's a great resource. I would also second that Debbie Lammers is a great resource as well. And then Nicole says, I think standard GCP training on the regulations only goes so far. Real world training examples on how this is actually applied in the daily job of a research coordinator, specifically including our institution specific processes, is needed.
I agree with that. Nicole, is there anyone on the call that has set up some of those real world training and examples for their research teams that would be willing to talk to Haley and Tricia about that?
Haley has.
This it might also, to that point though, be worth talking to the Cape about. I mean, we have simulation facilities now that we could do consenting. I think we could do a lot more on just practicing consenting and what that looks like, and some of the other real world simulation ideas.
Also curious, just from any of you that'd be willing to share, have you found barriers for yourself if you've wanted to do a professional development training or some kind of professional development and come across barriers, and what would those be if you'd be willing to share? Looks like somebody says cost in the chat. Yeah, thank you. Several costs.
Chelsea, like level of degree of the like the opportunity or of the person seeking the professional development?
Yeah, I mean the person seeking. I feel like the career development as a whole in clinical research, you can only get so far, and then you hit a wall with your degree before you can get to the next level. Usually it's needing a PhD.
It's great to hear from you.
You too. Good to see you, Tricia.
We also have feedback from Nalia, availability and timing. Robin says, to Nicole's point, of focus on consenting non-English speaking subjects is really important. I would agree. Definitely. Kristen says, I've done GCP and real life trainings with my research teams over the years. I'd be happy to collaborate. Thank you, Kristen.
I think too, with you know, a lot of loss over COVID and kind of coming back now back on campus, are there things that have been helpful that you've done that we shouldn't get rid of? I guess, you know, sometimes when we take these big initiatives, you know, we kind of make a change in the wrong direction. Are there things that have been really helpful? You know, is it meetings like this coming together as a community? You know, are there other things that maybe have been really helpful to just be able to share on a broader scale?
Malia says GCP trainings are only available through City, and would appreciate if we had some GCP trainings at university level with real life examples, as Kristen mentioned.
There's one up from Robin again about staff wanting more hands-on training, because a lot of them started through COVID. And I think that's a great point. I think we need, in this hybrid environment, it'd be really good to get an understanding of what you all think would be best as far as Zoom trainings, pre-recorded webinars, face-to-face hands-on trainings. And I know it's probably different for different subject matter or different areas, but it would be good if you guys had strong thoughts on the method of getting this information to your team.
Yeah, and I see Deb McAllister on here. I remember many years ago, a group on campus kind of getting together and problem solving together. And I don't know if others attended something like that, but I know that was really helpful. I don't know if others would be interested in more opportunities like that to just bring problems we're dealing with and kind of using each other to bounce ideas.
I really like that idea, or just some way to have more of a community for when you're launching new projects. You know, we're looking at using a study using wearables. I would love to talk to anybody else who's done research using wearables, especially for sleep. So just something more of a community in that way, because I think there is a lot of reinvention of the wheel these days.
And really doesn't need to be, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Heike notes in the chat that some FDA warning letters are a really good learning tool. Learning from other people's mistakes is better than making the mistakes yourself. I have seen some great use of the FDA warning letters and tales of inspections that really make those lessons stick. I would agree with that. Nalia says we do have a RAIN group for mostly the finance side, but I feel we lack something similar on the regulatory side. And Christy says, I haven't been to the CTSA trainings in a while, but I send my clinical research coordinators to them. I love the CTSA series of classes. Those are excellent resources and available on the training website for the Clinical Research Support Center. Kristen says ACRP has good resources available on their website, including a GCP simulator with real life examples. Not sure if these resources are just available for ACRP members. Generally, I've found that at least the local chapter of ACRP is very willing to collaborate just to get their name out there as well. Nicole says, have you all thought about collaboration with or reaching out to other academic medical centers to see how they are addressing these issues? It's an industry-wide challenge. Thank you, Nicole.
And if any of you have contacts at other institutions, if you came from somewhere else, that would also be helpful if you could connect us, if you know people there.
I see Tim. I'm gonna pick on Tim. Is there anything, Tim, from the CTSA consortium? I know they worked on this at some point. Do you know if there's resources on their website?
Sorry, Allison, I've been on a phone call as I've been listening out of the other ear, so I'm not actually prepared to answer that.
Okay.
I see some praise for Lori Burnside, who is the president of the Front Range chapter of ACRP. Yes, she's great. Brianna says, over the years, the trend has been towards more recorded and fewer live trainings, which is totally understandable. However, since many new staff have come on since pandemic and in our hybrid environment, I think a fresh focus on in-person live training would be good for creating fresh foundations and more opportunities for spontaneous examples and Q&A.
Well, we definitely don't want to cut any ideas off, so please do connect with us. I think Trisha and I could talk workforce development all day, every day. So we would love to connect with you again on a smaller scale, whether in person, we're on campus quite a bit, or if it's Zoom, really kind of however it works for your schedule. We'd also love if you have team meetings or other meetings that we could attend and listen to people that you know. If that works best, we're happy to come to you and try to accommodate as much as we can, because we really think it's important to gather feedback and to really listen to what the needs are. So this initiative is meaningful to all of you and to our amazing research community. We both love research and are really passionate about research happening here on campus. So want to make sure you feel supported by us and by any initiatives. Our contacts in the chat, and then will be shared with the slides. And we're on Teams and email, and you can reach us any number of ways.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Haley and Trisha. I would just like to reiterate, if people would like to connect with the workforce development group, please email Haley and Patricia, and their emails are in the chat. We have one final question for you. What is the timeline for this initiative?
So we're working on at least the development of this over the next, let's see, we're now in November. So all of our planning will be in between now and probably May, June, and then the plan itself is due to Allison by August, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Haley and Trisha. We appreciate you sharing about the workforce development program. So moving on from the workforce development program, if there are no other questions or feedback related to that, I will pass the baton to Ben Achalier to talk a little bit about the IND and IDE office. Ben, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Erin. So I am just going to give a high-level update. I know Allison mentioned this, I think last month. We have been working, with a lot of groups on campus to start planning an IND IDE office for the institution. We've talked to a lot of investigators, other groups on campus, Stacy and the Cancer Center. And I think there's a developed need for this, and a real clear need for a central resource that can help us manage INDs and IDEs at our institution. So this is a slide showing the number of INDs and IDEs. So currently we have both oncology and non-oncology. We have 25 in process, 64 open INDs that are recruiting, and 30 that are close to accrual. So a total of 119 INDs at various stages right now. I'm sorry, not right now, as of 2021. So why is there a need for an IND office? So I think what we've seen is a need for central resources to help facilitate the efficient startup process and take off some of the administrative burdens that are falling on PIs who want to do IND or IDE research. There is an added benefit of involving central research administration that we can help to mitigate compliance risks, i.e., reduce the number of audit findings or need for audits, and ensure that the research is initiated with feasible goals and appropriate resources, which means making sure that there are adequate staff, funding, et cetera, to actually move forward with an IND or IDE. This again is another chart showing the current demand for INDs and IDEs. I think with the creation of a central resource that will make it easy for investigators, we do expect these numbers to probably start to increase. But you can see that, so for instance, in 2021, there were 24 single patient INDs and 23 new IND or IDEs. So I'm not going to go through, these are text heavy slides. I'm probably not going to go through all of these, but I do want to just let you know that we are in the process. We expect to have something formed and up and operational to support campus probably in the spring of 2023. There are different ideas of how different types of INDs and IDEs, and there will be some nuances in how the central office supports those. And I think we'll probably get into the details as we get closer to the time when we're rolling this out. But there are obviously industry funded and investigator initiated funded studies will be slightly different. There'll be academic IND applications as well, and then IDE applications, and then single patient IND requests. Essentially, we're planning to manage the actual communication with the FDA and initial application review, submission, and pieces like that in order to assist the investigator and have a central resource that is well experienced in these tasks. We'll also help with tracking of annual reports, amendments, et cetera. And at the same time that we do the initial application to the FDA, the central team will help with the internal regulatory submissions such as PRMS, IRB, et cetera. We also, I think I mentioned this earlier, provide some central feasibility assessment, also help look at protocols, budgets, and help facilitate scientific review by either SARC or PRMS. Again, I probably won't go into all of these, but you can see we'll take part in the site initiation visit. We'll have some pharmacovigilance support, trial master file setup, oversight and storage. We will use eReg for the trial master file for these studies, clinicaltrials.gov. All of these pieces that previously were really on the PI or the investigator to support and try and figure out on their own a lot of times. There's a lot of groups and investigators that don't have a strong clinical research team to support them that really need this level of assistance. There will be additional a la carte services available for those studies that require additional support, and the PI does not have a way of doing that, such as construction of CRFs in Envara EDC, management of safety oversight committees, clinical monitoring through CREST, if assistance is needed with follow-up submissions, et cetera. The actual costs for FDA submission, if you're using electronic submission, will obviously be the responsibility of the investigator or the department. And then also we'll connect you with this statistical support that's available on campus. So CETA or the Cancer Center statisticians, things like that. And then this is important too. We will work with the PIs to make sure they understand their responsibilities and adhere to these responsibilities. I'm not going to go through them. I think most of us understand PI responsibilities, but it is especially important and also somewhat difficult for an IIT, IND for a PI to understand everything that is needed when they don't have a sponsor telling them what to do or a strong research team supporting them. So we will help with this as well. I think that's the last slide. The other thing that I will mention, I think most of you who have done IND research on campus or have been involved in submitting an IND or IDE probably know Heike Newman, who has supported that work in regulatory compliance for years now. She has accepted the position of program director for the IND office. And so we'll be working over the next few months to build out the team and be prepared to open up in the spring of 2023. Allison, is there anything I missed or anything you wanted to add?
No, I think there's a question in the chat from Nalia. Is there any training or help available for IND, IDE for staff that can help with this process? Also, can the regulatory team members within the department be involved in those meetings with the FDA?
Yes. The answer to both is yes. But for now, until the IND office opens, Heike is still your best contact if you have questions or need help learning about the process. And then for sure, the study, if there's a study team with regulatory coordinators and stuff like that, they would definitely be engaged in the process. There are.
So I think the other thing, just to be clear, is currently we have CTOP that manages studies where we're manufacturing products, particularly in the cell therapy world. And as Ben mentioned, we have support services in Creo. And so part of what is happening is centralizing those resources and formalizing the process. So there will be some mandatory components of this. And part of that is just checks and balances, because as we move into first in human cell therapy, and that's going to keep expanding with the institutes. Obviously, that's high risk, but all of these IND studies can have close scrutiny from the FDA, and so they are higher risk studies. So some of this is to provide better, more consistent support, and some of it's to provide institutional oversight.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Alison. That's a great point.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. And I can see many congratulations for Heike. I want to second that as well. I've worked closely with Heike for basically the entire time that I've worked at the university. I'm very excited to have her leading this office as well.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who wished me the best and said congratulations. Thank you very much, guys. We'll be working together, just like we have in the past. It'll be good.
And there's another question from Robin about whether using the group will be required for investigator-initiated studies where the investigational drug is manufactured off campus. All INDs and IDEs will either go through this IND office or through the cancer center in their infrastructure for INDs. So if it's the non-oncology or cell therapy, it will go through this process, even if it's investigator initiated and manufactured off campus. But the level of support and oversight will be different, and we'll tease that out as we get closer to opening the office. But the goal would be to have a way of tracking and providing oversight to all FDA regulated IND and IDE work on campus.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Heike. Are there any other questions related to the IND and IDE office before we move on?
Happy for people to email Heike or I with additional questions too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. That brings us just about to the end of our Clinical Research Connections meeting today. Just a couple of final notes. We will be skipping the December and January meetings, and we will resume Clinical Research Connections sessions on February 21st of the new year. We are also always open to ideas and for speakers or topics. So if you would like to suggest a topic, or you'd be willing to speak to the group as a presenter, please email us at clinicalresearchconnections@cuanschutz.edu. The email is in the chat. And the slides and recording will be sent out at the end of the week. Future links for scheduled sessions are available on the CREST website, and I'll share that link in the chat as well. And if there are no additional questions, I'll give you a little bit of time back at the end of this meeting. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Feel free to reach out to us or to any of our speakers with applicable questions. And have a great afternoon.